Hi guys, for my informative speech today, I'm going to be talking about gun rights and the Second Amendment. Over the last few years, there have been quite an upswing in mass shootings that have involved what they are calling an assault-style rifle, which is the AR-15, which is the one you hear about in the news a lot. That rifle, it has a lot of different variations. There's a lot of different things we need to discuss in order to really understand what needs to be done and understand what questions need to be asked. The issue is very polarizing. It seems like one side of the argument is either conservatives, and the other side is Democrats/liberals looking to get tighter gun restrictions, even repealing the Second Amendment in the most extreme. On the conservative side, it's more, some of them really don't want anything to be done as far as restrictions on assault-style weapons, which is basically, it looks like it could be a military weapon, even though every gun in some point has been involved in the military. And one of the main arguments that the side that kind of disagrees with the conservative viewpoint is that the Second Amendment doesn't really apply to modern day weapons because what they would have had back in colonial times was a musket, which was breech loaded. You load the ammunition and gunpowder down the barrel. It's a lengthy process, to say the least, to load it every time. And the weapons that have been used in these mass shootings have high capacity magazines to 20 to 30 rounds each, so you can fire, potentially you can kill up to 30 people without even having to reload, which is really scary, honestly. I personally am a supporter of the Second Amendment, but I also realize that something does need to be done here. It is a very nuanced issue just because where I come from, getting rid of guns totally will never actually work because statistically it's been proven that there are more guns in the U.S. than there are people. So there are over 300 million guns, and I believe the number was over the tens of millions of AR-15s have been sold over the since they've come out in the 70s or 80s. So there are quite a few out there, and as far as doing a widespread ban on guns and ban on the AR-15, it would take too long to have the results that we want as far as stopping these shootings happening. I do believe that as far as increasing the age of purchasing, I do agree with that. A lot of the March for Our Lives, a lot of the politicians that have been supporting that are talking about raising the age of purchasing rifles from 18 to 20, or 21, sorry. I believe that this would be a great idea, just because the mind doesn't stop forming until you're 25. Your rationale and decision making are a lot more stable at an older age. Even though it's a difference of 3 years, I think anything that would make a difference would be helpful. As far as the opposing side, or I guess kind of my argument is, AR-15s, in order to ban weapons or kind of lower the amount of weapons similar to the AR-15 out there, you have to ban nearly all semi-automatic weapons, which includes a lot of rifles that don't look anything like the AR-15, don't have the magazine capacity. So I believe banning weapons that have the capacity to hold over, let's say, 10 to 15 rounds is where I would cut it off, even though that's still a lot. Maybe 10 rounds would be the top for me. And also, another position that the Second Amendment / conservative side does have is their concern is mainly that once legislation has been implemented, that will start to cut down on the gun rights. They use the slippery slope argument to where the government will want to grab more and more guns, try to include more restrictions within that, which is a real, it's happened before. Any country that disarms its citizens is putting them at risk just because we have to be able to defend ourselves against if the government gets out of control. I know it's a very crazy scenario, but it has happened before. And as far as a solution that I believe would work, I don't think there's any exactly correct answer. I do believe that research has shown that if we put an emphasis on mental health and really emphasize that on background checks, as far as like the Parkland shooting, that person who was involved, I don't want to even say his name, the police have been watching him for months because of his erratic behavior, and I just think that a more aggressive, or not aggressive, but progressive kind of police or law enforcement relationship with like the NRA and other gun organizations, just so that if there are telltale signs, we can hit it early and hopefully avoid any of these things. I know that the Vegas shooter, he just came out of nowhere, so I mean, there's always oddballs that you can't really control that, but I do believe that raising the age requirement for buying rifles will help a lot. I also, because from personal experience, I say after high school, my thought process and even my view on what happened in high school changes, and I did mature, and I believe that a lot of the pressures that kids are feeling when they do go through with something horrible like that could be avoided if we do raise the age requirement for gun purchasing. And as a nation, we can't continue to point fingers at each other when we're dealing with an issue like this. It's not either side's fault for this. It's that evil person who actually committed the crime. And I do believe that realistic gun legislation can and will fix that. Thank you.